So I'm really delighted to welcome Maiya Evans today to give our webinar. Maiya's from Amphibian and Reptile Groups UK, an organisation that Going for God's Acre have had links with and worked with and shared information and records with for many a long year. So always a pleasure to have somebody from Amphibian and Reptile Groups come and speak to us. She's clearly very passionate about amphibians and reptiles, aren't we all? But I think Maya probably even more than the rest of us. And also has a lot of practical experience actually surveying out in the field. So it's not a theoretical knowledge, it's a knowledge, no doubt, based on leaking wellies and long days spent out searching for animals. And also, Mo, I read that you've experience in training volunteers. So treat us as a group of your volunteers, please,
I
and
will do.
please give us a bit of training. Thank you very much.
Yes, of course. So thank you for having me. I'm really excited to do this. I just do want to say that doing this presentation was really interesting and I've learned a lot from it myself. Obviously, you guys are the ones that are actually doing the stuff that you're doing. So if at any point you would like to add something or just tell us what you're up to on your site, please feel free, as I want to learn from you guys as well as, like I say, you are the ones that are actually doing it. So we'll get started. If it will work. There we go. So this is the content that we will talk through today. We will talk about briefly why graveyards are beneficial to wildlife. I'm sure most of you already know why, but it just gives us a little segue into why we're here. We will then really specifically talk about the benefits of it for reptiles and amphibians. But the main thing I'm here today for is to talk about reptile ID, ecology and survey methods, and we will also talk about the same thing, but for amphibians. To finish it off, we'll talk about why they need protecting. So why do we need you guys to actually manage your sites and improve your sites to, help these very declining species? So who are the Amphibian and Reptile Groups UK? So we are a charity that aims to conserve the UK's native amphibians and reptiles, but also their environment, so the habitats they live within. And we support a network of independent, volunteer-led amphibian and reptile groups. So these are known as ARG groups, and most counties have them. There are over 40 active ARG groups based across Britain, as you can see from this lovely map, with approximately 5,000 members combined, but this is ever growing. The Amphibian and Reptile Groups UK run various projects that people like yourselves can get involved in, one of which includes the Make the Adder Count. This is a project that started back in 2005. It's a long-term running survey and it encourages people like yourselves to go out onto adder sites in the springtime to count how many adders you are seeing. We do also have a very new project which rolled out this week called Travelling Toadlets. So if you're interested in going out to a pond or somewhere near you that you know toads are, walking along your paths and seeing if you can find any tiny toadlets, so emerging tadpoles, out and recording them for us. So like I say, this is a new project, so please do get involved if you can. So the local R groups in each county run surveys, habitat management and training for their members, but also the general public as well. This is to raise awareness of amphibians and reptiles and that they're not these scary, slimy things that are really bad for us. They are really beneficial to our ecosystems. And training and educating the public to basically know they're worth saving. So I'd just like to introduce myself, just so you know why I'm here. So I am the chair of Nottinghamshire Amphibian and Reptile Group. I'm also the training and events intern for the Amphibian and Reptile Groups UK. Now, I did first get interested in amphibians and reptiles at the age of 15. Although I've always been interested, this is where my real passion started. So I've now surveyed amphibians for around 7 to 8 years. During this time, I've also ID'd, so I identify and verify records from all over Britain, including non-native and native species. For frog life, I record and record pool. As well as being chair of NOTS ARG, I do also volunteer for various other ARG groups across the Midlands in specific. My main role as the chair of NOTSARG is training people in surveying, so actually taking people out into the field and training them in how we survey effectively and the pros and cons of each method, as well as identification, which is my main passion and speciality, and then also teaching people how to manage their land for amphibians and reptiles. And I've been doing that for around 3 years. I also got my Great Crested Newt license at age 19, so I've now had that for almost 4 years. And we'll talk a bit about licensing a little bit later. But as well as my passion for amphibians and reptiles, I do a lot of bat stuff, and I've been a bat surveyor for 4 years and a bat carer for 3 years. And I am currently studying wildlife conservation at Nottinghamshire University. Anyway, enough about me, and let's get into why we're actually here. So to kick us off, I would like to ask you 3 questions. Feel free to type these in the chat and answer them for me, just so that we can gauge an idea of what you guys are doing so that we can talk about it as we go through the slides and hopefully answer some of the questions you may already have. So my first question is, what species of amphibians and reptiles do you already have, what you've already seen within your burial grounds? The second question, do you already manage your site for amphibians and reptiles? Now, you can just say yes or no, or you can explain how, that's absolutely fine. And the third question is, have you actually done any amphibian or reptile surveys before? Now, this can be within your burial ground, or this can be with a wider field. And we'll just spend a couple of minutes just so that we can see where everybody's at. Oh, toads. Toads are a nice one to have. Oh, excellent. Newts, frogs, and toads. Brilliant. Ah, slow worms. I think we're going to get a lot of those. None of the above. That's absolutely fine. Hopefully, by the end of the presentation, you'll know how to try and encourage them in. Oh, great crested newts. That's a good one to have that. Smooth newts, toads, and frogs. That's a good one, tell you. General nature surveys are still good. A lot of the skills that you learn from them can be transferable into amphibians and reptiles. So you're not starting completely from scratch. You'll be able to use what you already know and use it in this field. Yep, slow worms again. Odd frog. What we'll find is most of these, I presume, will mostly be on land rather than within the ponds. Adders, nice. Grass snakes, that we've not had that one yet. Grass snakes, yes. Grass snakes and slow worms often go hand in hand. They quite like the same habitats and they prefer, compost heaps, which we'll get onto a little bit later as well. So that's excellent. Okay, so it seems like we've got some people who know what they're talking about, so hopefully you'll learn something today. So, why are burial grounds beneficial to wildlife in general? They are undisturbed habitats. They remain largely untouched, and even if they are touched, it's very minimal. This means that populations of plants and animals can actually establish themselves and they can really thrive in these conditions. They are long-term habitats. They are often very old, which means undisturbed and old means that establishment of populations of both plants and wildlife has really, really been able to basically establish itself. Biodiversity hotspots, and I'm putting the last one in as well. They're biodiversity hotspots, but more specifically within urban areas themselves. Urban areas, as we all know, are very built up, very concretey. So having a burial ground within these areas or push everything really into this, let's be honest, only green space within the area. So you can really see as a whole, in a wide, broad scheme of things, wherever you are, burial grounds are really, really important because wildlife and plants have actually been allowed to establish rather than establishing, then being, cut down for houses to be built on and then having to establish themselves again. So they are so important. They are important for trees. For obvious reasons, they again established. So quite often in every burial ground, you get these old ancient trees with approximately 800 ancient and veteran yews is what I found, making up 3/4 of the British population. So that's very impressive. Stone walls. Now we'll talk about stone walls when we come to amphibians and reptiles. A lot of burial grounds are surrounded by dry stone walls, which have been there for many years. Now, these are perfect. They create a mosaic habitat. They add something new. They allow hibernation of mice, small mammals, amphibians, reptiles, you name it. It also creates this perfect moving corridor between one area to another area. So just like a hedgerow, these allow that migration of animals, no matter how small they are. Lichens. Lichens are unbelievably found. You find loads and loads on burial grounds. I'm going to get my facts right here. Over 700 of roughly 2,000 UK lichen species have been found within burial grounds, often rarer ones as well. I've got to throw the bats in there, got to give them some shine. So some of you may also be involved with the Bats in Churches scheme that the Bat Conservation carried out. Again, facts right. So the Bats in Churches scheme aimed to obviously survey bats within burial grounds, of which they found 12 out of the 18 species. So this is because you've got the ancient trees for foraging, you've got the dry stone walls, which allow that movement, and you've got the old buildings, which have been allowed to establish themselves. And just over 450 species of beetles have been found within some of London's cemeteries. So that's London alone. Now, let's get into the real reason. We are all here. So why are they beneficial to amphibians and reptiles as a whole? They basically everything we have just said. They are ideal. They have a combination of short, tussocky grasslands, hedgerows, dry stone walls, leaf litter, compost heaps, old stoneworks, and these are all perfect environments to allow the terrestrial life of amphibians in particular to thrive, but also the terrestrial life of all of the reptiles that we have. So among the 12 native amphibian and reptile species, several can likely be found in your burial grounds. Now, another little thing for you all is can you type in the chat what these species are? Don't worry if you're wrong. If you're unsure, have a little guess. Hopefully you can see them. A toad, yep. A famously warty toad. Yep, common toad and slowworm, brilliant. What about the other two? Yep, so slowworm, adder, toad, and newt. Okay. What else did everyone say? Oh, someone said grass snake. Okay. So I'm not going to tell you what they are just yet because we get onto ID in a minute and then we can come back to it. So they're beneficial to every reason we have already said. They're undisturbed. Amphibians and reptiles don't like to be disturbed much. It means that their habitat's not ideal. They keep getting disturbed, they can't feed, and the reptiles can't bask, they can't lay their eggs, so they're going to move elsewhere. Being undisturbed means they can literally thrive in these atmospheres. Environments, even. So, reptiles. Just want to do an overview of the UK reptiles, as it's important to know what we have in the UK, but then also what you're most likely to find within your area. So in the UK, we have 6 native reptiles. So native meaning that they are already here. Non-native species are species that have been introduced via mostly human intervention. So we have 3 lizards, the common lizard and the slowworm, or also the sand lizard. 3 snakes, grass snake, adder, and smooth snake. So many of these are common and widespread across Britain. However, the sand lizard and smooth snake, for example, are found within specific pockets. And the adder is also declining. So although they're widespread, they are very restricted within their movement. So all native reptile species are legally protected under the Wildlife and Countryside Act 1981. So this makes it illegal to intentionally kill, injure, sell any of these reptiles at any life stage. And their habitat is also protected. However, the sand lizard and the smooth snake, meant to say smooth snake, not smooth newt, I just had amphibians on the brain, are additionally protected against killing, capturing, selling, trading, and any form of disturbance. So this is where you will need a license to survey both sand lizards and smooth snakes. But the chances of you getting in these in churchyards is slimmer than the rest of them. So the terrestrial, most amphibian reptiles are terrestrial. So they like farmland, grasslands, mostly gardens. They love a good garden, particularly grass snakes. Dense undergrowth, long grasses, but they also like mixed habitat. So a variety of habitats within one area. Also leaf litter, and we'll talk about that in a minute. So common lizards are often found in sunny, dry areas with mixed open vegetation, but they also like the openness, but also the vegetation so that they can scurry off into if a predator comes near them. So habitats particularly include heathland, grassy fields, the edges of woodlands. So quite often you'll see, if you're visually searching, we'll talk about that in surveying, you'll often find them on brash heaps or log piles at the edge of woodlands where the sun's hitting it. Stone walls and logs, but also scrubby areas. All of these provide perfect basking areas, particularly for females. So the females will need the heat to basically incubate her live young within her. Then she'll give birth to the live young. So she needs these open areas to bask in to allow her to give birth. Slow worms, which I'm sure most burial grounds will have. If not, you'll have something else. These thrive in habitats that provide plenty of leaf litter, grass, and low vegetation. So slow worms are definitely the hardest out of these reptiles to find. They're a bit more secretive. They are a lizard, but they are a legless lizard, so they have no legs. They are neither slow nor a worm either, so that's that. What they do is the reason they have no legs is because they use the undergrowth to move underneath and find things like slugs, spiders, beetles to feed on. They have backward facing teeth, which means that nothing can get out of their jaw either. So they can be found in old, unmanaged gardens, meadows, and again, woodland edges. Grass snakes, they are also an aquatic species, so sometimes you may come across a grass snake swimming in a pond or a water body. And this is because they love to feed on frogs and toads in particular. So grass snakes are often seen in areas with dense undergrowth, long grasses, and again, near bushes near water. They may also be found within woodland edges and meadows, so anywhere that their food source is. Adders, like I said, they're a little bit isolated in where they are found, but they are commonly found in open habitats like heathland, moorland, woodland edges, coastal areas as well, and also rough pasture. They do prefer well-drained soils, and they do like a south-facing slope. But just because you might not have a south-facing slope doesn't mean you won't find an adder. The main thing to take away from reptile habitat is to have a variety of habitat, not just one. They like that mosaic, so different habitats next to each other so that they can move between. It offers different protection, it offers different food sources. So having that mixture is really, really important. So how do we spot reptiles? So I'm going to talk about two ways today. Visually searching. So visually searching involves walking slowly along a side that you think is going to be beneficial to basking reptiles. So this might be a sunny area, and as you can see from these photos, we are looking at the edge of a woodland in the first photo, where it becomes more open. So this allows at the bottom a reptile to happily bask, but then if we come close or a predator comes close, they can scurry off into the vegetation. You can also see in the other two photos that we are again looking at the edge. We're looking at the edge of scrubland and open land. And again, this is to allow that really easy basking, but also easy getaway. This is the most difficult way of surveying for reptiles. Even the people who are really good at it often miss them. Quite often you'll see them scurry off before you actually see what it was. Don't worry about IDing them necessarily, because if you sit quietly, they may come back out and you might be able to get a glimpse of what it actually is. So, a little quiz for you all. You don't have to type anything. This is just for your own test. In these two photos, there is a reptile in them, basking in the open or in vegetation. Have a little look and see if you can find it. Two red circles do come up in a minute if you can't find them. Bonus points if you can actually identify them. Okay, so in the first photo, we are looking at a common lizard, and it is here. Keeping in mind that these are taken on my phone photo, so using my phone, so I'm much further away from the animal than what this picture is showing, so it can be extremely difficult. And then in the second photo, we've got a lovely adder here. So this shows how camouflaged they are. They are really, really camouflaged. And if they don't move, they are very hard to see. So don't get hung up on if you're doing your visual searching, whether this just be while you're out and about or whether it actually be within your burial grounds. Doesn't mean they're not there. It just means they're ridiculously hard to see. So here's some visual searches that you may come across. Common lizards are actually quite accommodating and they will pop their heads out and want to have a little nosy at you. So if you find common lizards and they scurry off, sit there quietly, and quite often they'll come up and they know you're looking at them and you know they're looking at you. But the second way of surveying, and this is one that I would recommend doing, is artificial refugia and using natural refugia as well. So artificial refugia is using roofing felt. So in the first one, you're looking at flat roofing felt, and in the second one, you're looking at corrugated roofing felt. You don't have to buy these from NHBS, which is a wildlife place you can buy these from. You can literally go into Wix, B&Q, and buy a big roll and get a load out of them for a lot cheaper. This is what we use for the majority of our surveys. The reason they work, they are dark in colour, so they tend to be black. And what we're doing is we're popping them in areas that you may visually search for reptiles, essentially. So any little crevices within your burial grounds would be good to pop them on. Anywhere that you think the sun's hitting will be perfect. They're usually 50 by 50 centimeters, or if you're feeling fancy, you can do 50 centimeters by a meter. The bigger the corrugated sheets in particular, the chances of more snakes, if you've got them in the area, are going to go under them. So the reason they go under them, they attract the heat. So reptiles need this heat to bask, so to get the energy to move. They need it to digest any food they've eaten, and they need it to incubate their eggs or keep their live young going. So what you'll tend to find is with the flat ones, you'll tend to get your lizards and your slow worms. This is because it's direct heat. Because it's flat, the reptile can sit underneath and it's got direct contact. The corrugated ones, you tend to get your snakes under more, and this is because snakes are rounder, so that they can actually get and fit under them. And again, that direct heat. So these are the most effective way of surveying for reptiles. So if you want to survey for reptiles, I'd go for this method. You can also use natural stuff that's already within those areas. So you can use fallen stones, and you can also use logs as well. So if you do happen to have these on site, gently lift them up, have a little look to see if you can find any, particularly amphibians and slow worms, underneath them. The reason they attract them is because they're damp and they're cool. So if it's a really hot day, they're damp and they're cool, so they're fine. So gently lifting the stone or the log up. If we do happen to find anything underneath it, unless it's an adder, in which case let it slither off and do its own thing, gently pick it up, pop the log or stone back down, and then gently maneuver the amphibian or reptile back under. The reason being is what we don't want is to lift the log or stone, and as we're lifting it, it slightly moves, and then as we put it down, it can crush them, and we don't want that. So gently just remove them from underneath. It also gives you a chance to have a close look up and really look at the animal as well, which is I always recommend. So this is how we survey for reptiles. And these are some things that I myself have found underneath reptile mats within the last 2 years. So we've got a slow worm in the first photo, common lizard, two male grass snakes, then another grass snake, a common toad. You often get common toads loving a good bit of reptile mats, and another slow worm. So you can see they are really effective in what they do. Now, I just want to put this in there. And if you put reptile mats out, you'll get a lot of ants. The majority of what you find will be a lot of ants. If you do happen to put them out and have, masses of ants, if you want to move them out, obviously you're welcome to. But if you're happy for the ants to stay there, then keep it there. But quite often what we do is we just move it to the side ever so slightly, just to allow the reptiles to have that chance to bask. So, ID, common lizards. They are around 10 to 14 centimeters if they have their tail. Their tails can drop, so they can drop their tails if they feel threatened. So if you're ever in a situation where you need to pick a common lizard up, always pick it up by its body and not its tail. So they are brown in coloration. However, they can be bright green, they can be bright blue, and they can even be jet black as well. Chances are, if you're sort of Surrey upwards, it's going to be a common lizard, as sand lizards are just within the south of the country. So if you see what you think is a lizard, it's most likely going to be a common lizard. They have black spotting along all of their body. So again, this varies from individual to one individual. So sometimes they can be really marked and really, really patterned, and then others can be a bit more drab looking. And they have long toes, which are used for climbing. So sometimes you might see them basking vertically as well. So don't just look flat, look vertically too. Like I say, they can drop their tail. So if you do happen to need to pick one up, always pick it up by its body and not its tail. Slow worms. These are one of my favourite reptiles. They're so prehistoric looking. So these are slightly larger than you'd expect, to be honest. They're about 30 to 40 centimetres. And with all amphibians and reptiles within the UK, the females tend to be bigger than the males. So they are snake-like in appearance, but like I mentioned, they are a lizard. They're a legless lizard. And like I said, the reason being is to allow them to move between the undergrowth to forage. They have smooth scales, which appear silky. So if you're fortunate enough to actually hold a slow worm, they feel really silky, very smooth, really, really nice to hold. And you can see their scales touch each other, and we'll see the grass snakes and adders ones in a minute. So they are brown and silver in coloration. So what you tend to have is the females tend to be more brown and the males tend to be more grey. This isn't always the case, so we do have a identification guide for you all, which I can send the link to whoever needs it to send out. But yeah, so the males tend to be more grey in coloration, and also they can have blue sort of speckling on their backs as well. I'll leave that there a minute in case anyone's taking notes. So the grass snake. These are our largest UK snake, and they grow to around 50 centimetres to a metre in length. And again, the females tend to be the largest. They have a yellow collar. Now, if you're going to take anything away from my presentation today, please let it be this one. If you have got snakes within your burial ground, or anywhere for this matter, if it has a yellow collar, you are looking at a grass snake. No other UK snake has this distinctive yellow collar. So always look for the head. Yellow collar, you're looking at a grass snake. They can range from dark to light green in coloration too. If they are just shedding, so if they've got blue cloudy eyes, it's because they're shedding. I always like to put that out because sometimes people think it's got a disease. It hasn't, it's just shedding its skin. This is when they tend to be a bit more dark in coloration. As soon as they have shed, some individuals can be bright green, like vivid electric green. And they have bars along the sides of their bodies too. Now, again, this varies from individual to one individual. They can be really barred and they can be very minimally barred as well. So the adder, very commonly mistaken for the grass snake, and that's absolutely fine. So they are a smaller, stockier species. They can grow up to 55 centimeters. They are grey or brown in coloration. So the females tend to be more brown and the males tend to be more grey or silver. And the young, so adders give birth to live young. Grass snakes lay eggs. So adders young will be almost brick red. And they're really tiny and adorable too. So they have this dark brown or reddish black zigzag running along their back. If it's got a yellow collar, it's a grass snake. If it's got zigzags, it's an adder. That's the only thing you need to take away if you're going to take anything away today. They do have some spots along the sides, and again, this varies from one individual to another. Now, they do have red eyes with vertical diamond pupils. So, common lizards, slow worms, and grass snakes all have round pupils. Adders have red diamond shape, so they have red eyes with diamond-shaped pupils. And as you can see, this individual, they've got that bluey tinge over their eyes, so this snake will be shedding soon. So amphibians. This is my favourite topic, so I'll try not to ramble too much about them. Forget that slide, forgot to hide that one. So, overview of the UK amphibians. In the UK, we have 7 native amphibians. We have 2 frogs, the common frog and the northern pool frog. We have 2 toads, the common toad and the natterjack toad. And we have 3 newts, the smooth newt, palmate newt, and my all-time favourite, the great crested newt. So like reptiles, many of these are common and widespread across Britain, while some are found within specific pockets. So the northern pool frog can be found within a couple of locations in Norfolk, and that's it. And the natterjack toad is restricted to around 66 sites, but less, and along the coastline. All the rest are pretty common, but still declining. So all amphibian species are protected from selling and trading, but it's not illegal, unfortunately, to intentionally kill them. So something needs to change there. But like the smooth snake and the sand lizard, great crested newts, natterjack toads, and the northern pool frog are additionally protected, and it is illegal to kill, capture, sell, trade, and disturb in any form. And a license is needed to carry out any surveys or disturbance on them. So amphibians in the UK are experiencing a rapid decline, and we'll talk about this again with the why they need protecting. But common toads have decreased approximately 68% in the last 30 years. So if you have them on your site, that is absolutely fantastic, and we need to keep those populations up. So we're going to talk about terrestrial and aquatic habitat for these. So as I'm sure many of you know, amphibians both live on land and both in water. So we'll talk about terrestrial habitat first. They love the same terrestrial habitat as most of our reptiles. And the reason the reptiles love them is because the amphibians are there. and they can have a little snack on them. So, toads and frogs are usually seen within water during the breeding season. However, this time of year, for example, you may start to see them under logs. You may also find them under some leaf litter, stones, and also those reptile mats we were talking about. Now, frogs do remain near water bodies most of the year, and this is because their skin needs to remain moist in order to survive. Whereas toads, they are more of a terrestrial creature, as they have dry, warty skin, and they can also travel some distance. So toads don't need the water to survive, whereas frogs do require to be near a water source to keep their skin moist. So toads can travel up to 1 kilometre, however, they are known to travel more as well. But in the UK, due to the restricted areas they can actually access, it's around 1 kilometre. Now, when on land, all amphibians use this sit and wait technique for feeding. So they literally sit, wait for something to come across, and then they go for it. I'll leave that there again if anyone's taking notes. Okay, aquatic habitat. So amphibians can be seen in ponds, lakes, occasionally ditches or slow-moving streams. Now, you're probably less likely to see them in aquatic form on a burial ground. However, I do want to briefly talk about it just as a wider general ecology. So toads and frogs are explosive breeders. So you may actually only see adults for a few weeks at a time. So they typically breed anywhere from mid-February all the way up until sort of mid-March, end of March time. They breed for about 2 weeks and then all of a sudden they disappear. So Rana temporaria, the scientific name for common frog, literally translates to temporary frog. And this is because back in the 15th, 16th century, they had no idea where they went. So they were known as a temporary frog. So once the breeding has finished, this is when they come onto land. They come onto land to feed because it takes such energy resources to, particularly for the females, to carry the eggs, produce the eggs, lay the eggs, and also carry all the males that are on her. So it takes a lot of energy for this to happen. So they need to feed up again, ready for the next year. Now, female toads don't breed every year, just want to put that out. So you often see with all amphibians, you see more males in the water than you do females, and this is because the females don't breed every year. It takes too much energy up for them. So newts aren't explosive breeders, and they do stay within the ponds for a few weeks. Now, for those who know, male newts tend to have this beautiful big crest. Now, this is used for courting the female. So it's a visual cue for them. So they waft their tails and waft their crest, and if the female accepts him, then she will have her eggs fertilized and she'll lay her eggs individually wrapped. So she lays 200 eggs per season that she's breeding into leaves, over several weeks. So that it's a little bit different to the explosive breeders of frogs and toads. How do we actually look for them? Now, the same way for reptiles. You can put reptile mats down, you can put stones out or use the stones that are already there. You can use logs as well. Visually searching, so if you do happen to have a pond either on your site or nearby that you have permission to look in, you can do a visual search during the day. So looking for any potential spawn or toads just having the time of their lives on top of the water, you can do that. They are a nocturnal species. So again, if you have a pond on site or one that you have access and permission to survey, you can also do torchlight surveying too. So this means going to the pond at night with a torch, scanning the pond and counting what you see. But I just really want to reiterate the terrestrial side of things are so important for amphibians. So don't get hung up on wanting to build a pond here and a pond there. The terrestrial side of their life is the most important as they need to feed in order to breed. So even if you don't have a pond, creating habitat that they can forage in is crucially important for them. Identification. So common frogs are around 6 to 8 centimetres, and again, females are a lot chunkier. They have raised green/brown eyes. They have an arched back. So quite often you see this arched back, and that's their hip bones, and that's where the power for jumping comes from. They are olive skin colour, but again, varies. You can have bright green ones, bright red ones, so it does vary. They have smooth skin. So if you look at a frog or feel a frog, it's kind of wet, kind of smooth. They have barred stripy front and back legs. And these back legs are muscular and these are used for jumping. So if you see a frog or a toad and it's jumping quite high, you are looking at a frog. They have black spots along the back and their flanks, so the flanks being the side of their bodies. And again, varies from one individual to another. Some are more stripy and spotty than others. They have a black patch behind the eye. So if it looks like they're wearing a little robber's mask, you're looking at a common frog. And they have a lovely pointed snout. Common toads. Similar size to common frogs, 6 to 8 centimetres, but again, vary. They have rough, warty skin. So unlike our common frogs, which are smooth and wettish, toads are typically dry and warty. They have strong back legs, but these are used for crawling. So you quite often see the shuffle of a toad along the floor, and they really do just shuffle along, very, very close to the ground. And if they do jump, it's not very high. So unlike frogs who have the bandit mask and 2 black patches behind each eye, well, a patch behind each eye, common toads have what's known as parotoid glands. So these are glands here, you can see them. They're more prominent in the females, like this one. These hold toxins which make them distasteful to predators. So if a fox or something was to eat it, it would probably spit it back out because it's not very nice. Golden eyes. Now again, 15th, 16th century, common toads were believed to hold a stone within their heads called buffonite. So the common toad name is buffo buffo. So it was believed to hold a stone called buffonite in its head, which kings and queens used for their crowns to give them fortune and wealth. Obviously, toads don't have a stone within their heads, but it is a real gem. And they have a round, broad snout. And again, if you're ever unsure, take a photo of what you've seen and pop it on iNaturalist, or we'll talk about Record Pool or your own system as well. Smooth newts. Smooth newts are a small newt species and they grow to around 9 to 10 centimetres in length. As the name would suggest, smooth skin, quite velvety in texture if you were to hold them. They have plain, unstriped feet, and they range from dark brown to light brown. And the males can, in the breeding season, appear more blue as well. Like I say, they have this velvet texture, a bit like leather. Pearlmate newt. These are also a small newt species, similar size to our smooth newt, 9 to 10 centimetres in length. They are olive green in coloration, so they do tend to be a bit more green than smooth newts, but they can be very difficult and easily confused between the smooth newts. So again, if you're unsure, take a photo. They have a black band across their face, so these again look like they're wearing a bandit mask. And this band runs straight through this bright orange eye. Both the male and the female have this white patch underneath their eye, and it tends to be spotty and almost gold as well, like gold glitter. The great crested newt. This is my all-time favourite. So these are our largest UK native species of newt, and they can grow to around 15 to 17 centimetres in length. And again, the female is typically bigger. So they are black and warty. They were previously known as the warty newt as well because they are really warty. They have white speckles along their flanks, so the flanks again being the side of their bodies. But some individuals may have that running along their tail, their chins, their necks, and some might just have a few speckling. They have yellow, orange, stripy feet. So out in the field, if you're unsure what you've got and none of the other features are coming to you, look at the feet. If they're orange and stripy, you've got a great crested newt. If they aren't, you've got one of your other species, and then you can narrow it down. And they have lovely golden eyes too. When identifying any of these species, try not to get hung up on necessarily what it is, but try and eliminate what it isn't. And then even if it gives you two options, you know it's one of the two options. People get so hung up on trying to work out what it has got. Start with what it hasn't got, is what I would advise people to do. Recording. I'm sure you all have your own way of recording everything, and I don't want to take that away from you. But if you do have an extra couple of minutes to also put your records onto our record pool, this will be put onto given data basically to us, and it will get onto the national database and everything. But if you already if you already record on places, then that's absolutely fine. But if, like I say, if you do have an extra couple of minutes, if you could pop it on here, that would be fantastic. And you can submit historical records too. Actually, I'll keep that there in case you want to take the thing a minute. Okay. So why do they need protecting? Unfortunately, globally, amphibians and reptiles are declining. They're one of the main taxa to actually be declining, particularly amphibians. So we call it a common toad, but unfortunately, they are experiencing population declines for reasons such as habitat loss and fragmentation, fragmentation being the main one. I'm sure a lot of you have probably heard of toads on roads. And unfortunately, during the migration season, their mass migration does mean they have to travel across roads, meaning a lot of them get unfortunately squished. So amphibians and reptiles are less understood by the general public. So nobody really cares about them. So we need people like you to actually put effort in and try and help these species. Like I said, common toads have declined by 68% over the last 30 years. Adder is the UK's only venomous snake. It doesn't chase you and it doesn't try to kill you. They will slither off before you probably see it. So if you do have adders on site, it's not a problem. You can learn to live with them. So adders unfortunately have declined quite significantly, particularly within the Midlands. I'm from Nottinghamshire and we have no adders within Nottinghamshire due to basically fragmentation and too much development going off, which has pushed the adders out. So in a lot of sites, fewer than 10 individuals exist. Now, this is obviously very bad as it can cause things like inbreeding, which is obviously not a good thing. So we know why they are declining, but how can we actually manage your space to not necessarily get the population back up, but to help all reptiles and amphibians thrive in that local area and just give them that extra bit of safety to survive. So burial grounds can be managed very similar to gardens and allotments for amphibians and reptiles. Many of the things that you do for burial grounds are just things that people in allotments do in general. So what you're already doing for the general wildlife is already actually being beneficial to reptiles and amphibians. It all works together. So what you're already doing is probably already good. So leaving parts of your burial ground to grow. Now, this doesn't mean all of it. It just means having a dedicated area that's allowed to grow and allowed to be managed for wildlife in a shady, sunny area, if possible, sort of a mixture. This would do wonders for amphibians and reptiles. Just that little corner of safety will let them thrive and feed and hibernate as well. So we don't want everything to be overgrown. We want obviously some closer cropped areas to allow that direct sun to hit to allow that basking. So this can be things like if you've got a hedgerow, allowing a little bit of growth along that hedgerow or even a stone wall. But this gives them stone wall to forage within. It gives them the stone wall to cool down in and hibernate in. It gives them that little bit of grass along the side of it to actually move safely without being seen, but the edge of it to bask. So there you've got an ideal, perfect little area for reptiles. Now, if it's good for reptiles, it'll be good for amphibians. Leaving out bits of wooden boards or roofing felt or even corrugated iron. So like we didn't speak about corrugated iron, but you can also use that to attract reptiles. You will find reptiles under these, hopefully if you've got them within the area, but you will also see potentially common toads and in particular, and also newts. If you can and have got the space, then creating little log piles, they don't have to be big. I think everyone gets hung up on having this big, magnificent thing. Honestly, just a couple of logs would do. So this provides shelter underneath for toads and other amphibians. It also allows slow worms to go under them. But it also allows things like common lizards and grass snakes and adders to bask on them as well. The logs create this little environment where beetles and insects and small mammals can go, which is, like we mentioned, ideal for our reptiles to eat. Now, ponds. I'm not telling everybody now to go out and build a pond. It's not always feasible, particularly what you guys are doing. But this is more general in your garden, or if someone lives close by that get them to put a little pond in. Now, this can be a sink, an old sink. It can be an old children's sand pit. It could be a washing up bowl. But something, a water body like this is honestly fine. Again, you don't need this big, magnificent, deep pond. It can be a washing up bowl. And this will provide this cool environment for an amphibian to sit in, cool down, maybe a newt to forage in with as well. But also grass snakes can cool down in it. It's perfect. It benefits all wildlife. It benefits the hedgehogs as well. So like I was saying, you don't have to build this giant pond, and I'm not telling everyone to go out and build a pond in their burial ground at all. But if there's a little patch nearby or a nearing neighbour, then yes, go for it. Compost heaps. So mowing, obviously, a lot of people do. So any of the leftover grasses and things can be popped into a compost heap. Now, here's a little explanation of how to do it. I'm not going to go into it myself, but here's how we do it. Now, these are beneficial to allow grass snakes to forage. They are to bask on top of, but also to lay their eggs in. Grass snakes like an ideal warm environment to lay those eggs in to allow them to hatch. Slow worms also love compost heaps, and they will do the same. They will use them to bask, forage, and also lay their live young in. So compost heaps can again be a really beneficial thing to have within your burial ground or in your garden if you wish as well. And if you're already mowing, you're not doing much more than just putting in a pile somewhere. It doesn't have to be all neat like this either. It can literally just be a big pile or a small pile of it. So that is it from me. Here are a few books that you can get for identification purposes, surveying, but also management as well. They aren't overly pricey. I think the management books are about £9 each. The Britons, Amphibians and Reptiles is about 15, and I'm not sure about the other one. But if you are interested in using these, then go for it. If you want to contact me personally, you can contact me either on the Nottinghamshire arg@hotmail.com or maya.evans@arguk.org. And if you'd like to find an ARG group that's local to you or more about our organisation, you can go on to www.arguk.org and you'll get all the information you need on there. There's also some really wonderful identification guides which go a little bit more in depth on male and female than I could today. Um, but yeah, that's it from me. I hope you've all enjoyed it, and I guess we're gonna answer some questions.
Yes, thank you very, very much, Maya. That was a really comprehensive sort of trip through amphibians and reptiles for us all, and a lot of information there. I noticed you let people write a few notes, which I'm sure are very helpful. But
Yes.
also, we will be sending out these slides to everybody, so you will have a
Oh,
copy as a bit of a reference point. Because I think you really covered an awful lot of information. It was
yeah.
absolutely brilliant.
Yes, it was hard
Um,
to try and work out what to put in, but
don't you
hopefully
know, it's a very,
covered
very good
everything.
balance. Thank you very much. So I think we all need to take away two things. One is if it's got a yellow collar, it's a grass snake.
Yep.
Zigzags all the way down is an adder.
Yep.
Yep, yep. So yeah, very good. And then we don't need to put ponds in churchyards.
No. No, we
Put
don't.
them in the neighbouring ground if possible.
Yes.
I'm now going to just whiz about and see if I can find the questions. There was a question early on. I'm just trying to find where somebody was asking about walls. Yes, Lisa asked, you were speaking about dry stone walls and how good they are as habitat. And Lisa asks, are just dry stone walls relevant? We've got a flint and stone wall, but no real gaps amongst the stones. So it'd be good for lichens.
Yes, it will. So for amphibians and reptiles, what we're looking for really is those gaps between. So if it hasn't got many gaps between the stones or the flint and everything, then the chances of them being used for movement or hibernation or foraging is very minimal.
Mm.
However, that doesn't mean they're not beneficial because it does still allow that migration path to carry on, regardless of whether they're actually moving within the wall, they might be using it next to the wall. So they are still beneficial. And for lizards, they still might bask on the edges of them. Um, but what you could do just to mitigate this a little bit, if you wanted to, was just get some stones, just, 3 or 4 biggish ones or a little pile. Just put a couple of piles along it, and that will do. They'll use the wall and the stones to move between. So they'll use the wall to move and then the stones to forage and hibernate. So essentially, you've got it there.
So you just make a pile of a few stones at the base
Hmm.
of the wall every now and
Yeah,
again. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
That's a
that would do
very nice
fine.
idea. Yeah. Um, I just made the point when you were talking about the refugia, the mats, that you can often get free offcuts.
Yes.
God's Acre got a whole lot of offcuts from somewhere called Shed City.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, very good. Yeah. So
Nice.
they're not expensive, but
Yeah.
if you do have a shed maker nearby, you can just have a
Mhm.
word as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Very interesting about corrugated and flat being more attractive to different animals.
Yeah.
I don't think we've got any flat ones down. We've only got corrugated because of Roof City using corrugated probably, but yeah, we might try
Yeah.
and
It's something that you just pick up over the last years, and you do
yeah,
tend to, where we've got more slow worms, you tend to put more flat ones out.
yeah,
So then you get that
yeah.
population. So yeah.
We do definitely have more slow worms in churchyards. Um, Lisa asked about corrugated iron. That's what we've seen at local nature reserves. Just before you answer that, I'm going to say I've seen a small child lifting the most appallingly sharp and rusty corrugated iron refugia mat up with absolute glee. And all the adults around were holding their breath to see if we were going to have to go and get tetanus jab, but he did it without any mishap. But that would be my recommendation away from iron would simply
Yes.
be about how sharp it gets and how
Yeah, definitely. And also with reptile mats, you've got to consider is thankfully most bail grounds aren't overly huge, but how many are actually wanted to carry in your hands? If you get loads, how are you going to carry them? So try to think about the logistics of it as well and time as well. Everything basically, like you say, but you can use corrugated iron. And if it's sharp, wear gloves.
yeah. Alice, I hope you were able to see the pictures. I know Liam tried to give you a hand there, but we will send you the recording afterwards. But I do hope you were able to see the pictures as Maya was speaking. Um, Lisa asked whether you need to wear gloves to hold reptiles. Can we pass on infections to them or vice versa? I think it's very
That's
interesting
a very
question,
good
that.
question.
Yeah, yeah.
So my suggestion would be yes. They have to be powder free and or latex free. So latex and powder free gloves for both reptiles and amphibians. So as for diseases, there's no known diseases that we can transfer to amphibians and reptiles, or they can transfer to us. Reptiles, you can get salmonella from them. So it's always advised either to wear gloves or always wash your hands after. But gloves are obviously the best way. If you have to dispose of those gloves as well, as if one reptile does or amphibian has a disease, you don't want to then be having gloves that have got that disease on, pass on to another amphibian or reptile. But the thing with amphibians in particular is if you've got hand cream on, or you've got hand sanitizer on, or something like that, then this can actually be absorbed through the amphibian's skin.
Mm.
So for amphibians in particular, gloves are advised, but always make sure it's powder and latex free.
Right, right. And then dispose of those ones. And I suppose if
Yeah,
you're wearing, say, gardening gloves or something, you need to wash them really thoroughly.
yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
you can hold them with gardening gloves, that'd be fine. But yeah, just
Yeah,
make sure if you're just using them on one site, you'll be okay.
yeah,
But yeah, just make sure they're washed if you're moving from site to site.
yeah, yeah. But if you've got clean hands without cream on, actually
Yes.
handling them by hand and then washing your hands,
Yeah.
they're probably a
It's
bit more washable, aren't they, really? Yeah, yeah.
yeah, that's it.
Mm.
There's a lot of waste if you're doing it that way. But
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, well that yeah, very interesting. I hadn't thought about that. I think that is it for questions, which I think is a bit of a tribute to how thorough you were in your presentation. I think you covered all sorts of information that people will find very, very useful.
excellent.
And please do look out, put down sheets and look out in particular for
Yes.
silverworms. I tell you what, we don't very rarely get records from, and we don't often see ourselves is lizards in burial grounds, which surprised me because they do seem to me to be really good habitat.
Mm.
But so if anyone's seeing lizards, I mean they do see you first, don't they? And they are quick to vanish. So I
Yes,
always
they
wonder
do.
whether they're being overlooked or whether they're not there. So but any information about lizards, I know Ken for God's Acre would be very interested to know, and I'm sure also amphibian and reptile groups and amphibian and reptile conservation would as well, through the record pool. So various people are saying thank you very much and generally are leaving, but if anybody's got a pressing question, now is the moment. And
If you don't feel comfortable asking the question, you can email me. I'm happy to answer any queries anyone has.
thank you very much, Maya. That's really helpful. And I'll just remind you again that we do have one more webinar tomorrow. I think it'll be really interesting, and that you can, by emailing inquiries out, get the recordings of the ones that have gone if for any reason you missed them. Yeah, no, I think we are all good. So I'll say thank you very, very much indeed, Maya. That was really informative and brilliant. And thanks to everyone who attended. And it's not going to be me tomorrow, it's going to be Prue, but hopefully we'll see some of you tomorrow.